Well, before we start talking about Trino, let's start from movement Detroit.
All right.
Well, tell me, how did the Detroit Electronic Music Festival before movement started, and what was the motivation to start the festival?
Well, the original motivation to do the festival was simple. I mean, we wanted to have a platform for the music. There was no platform for the music, really. It was just, there was techno music, there was Detroit, and then there was the rest of the world in music. Chicago was making music, and New York was making its version of music, you know, and there was a bit of things happening in Europe. But for these markets always had their own representation. Chicago had nightclubs, New York had nightclubs, media, television of all levels, and a lot of worldwide support and endorsements. Those bitches are getting louder and louder next door.
Yeah.
They're getting louder. Shut up, bitches! You know? Anyway, so what happened is that from those platforms, I think that we felt like we didn't have one. We just felt like, how can we really represent this music if we don't have a way to show people really what it's all about? This is my own thoughts. I used to discuss this with Carl Craig a lot. And traveling around the world playing music was cool. It was always important, you know, nice to make a lot of money and present the music to people. But the reality was that it still wasn't enough to truly show the level of accomplishment of the music. It took 10 years to make this festival happen, almost more than that. It took money and a lot of support. We still never really had the sponsorship for the festival because I think people never really considered Detroit as a prominent market. Outside of making cars and being known for Motown, there wasn't really a lot of support for something like what we were talking about. People just could not imagine, the general population and the general music professionals couldn't imagine that techno music really came from Detroit. They knew it had an origin from Detroit, but they didn't really believe that the people that were living in Detroit still were making this music. So that's why the festival, I think, was so important for us to show all of that, to present on a platform, in a package, this music.
And in 2001, Carl Craig resigned from being artistic director of the movement, for the DEMF, and then you stood up,
right,
and then started the Movement Festival.
Right.
Why did you decide to take that responsibility?
The reason I got involved with the festival is that, if I can correct you, Carl was actually fired. The reason was that he put himself in an unfortunate position. He was a bit inexperienced at the time. To no fault of his own, he trusted some people that took advantage of him, you know, because he had an idea that he brought to them. I never was going to do the festival, really. It was Carl that went ahead with this idea. Even though it was my own idea, Carl went ahead with it. And he made it happen. He brought it to reality. He presented it to these people. He made it happen. But he didn't quite, being so trusting, you know, and being young, I think the mistake he made is that he thought that these people understood his motivation and they understood his dream. He didn't feel like he had to protect his interests at that point. Only to learn much sooner than that, afterwards, that he should have protected his interests because these people had other interests at heart. And that's why Carl quit. That's why he left. That's why that's why he walked away from the whole thing. I got involved because of that original motivation. When that happened, the actual people that Carl was working with, they were also, the city of Detroit decided that it probably was not a good idea to work with them because the credentials of them at that point was going to be very bad for the festival and no good for the musicians, and nobody wanted to work with them. And that's why I got involved, to bring the credibility, to keep the credibility, and to stay the credibility.
Also, you mentioned, I remember you were saying before that you wanted to keep that festival to the artists.
That's it. I mean, it was very important to keep it tied to the community, the music community in Detroit. Because without the music community, the festival would just be just another festival. You know, and that was something that was really important. mean, I think it's helped a lot of people. If maybe it's not helped them directly with their careers, it's helped their motivation to want to keep making music on another platform. Maybe everybody didn't become superstars, you know, but it did help to keep the music scene moving in Detroit. And it opened the ears and eyes of a lot of people that really didn't know. Even people from Detroit that didn't even know the music was from Detroit. They didn't even know, you know, so it was a good thing. It was a good thing.